That was really effective. I loved that video imagery. Tell us about the music. I hesitate to even say music, but of course it's music. Yeah, that was really intriguing as well too.
Yeah, it's a sound score by Robert Ashley, who's this experimental artist, and I think it was created in the 70s. And it was something called automatic writing, and it was something he had, I forget what it's called, but it's sort of an involuntary speech disability, and he basically he decided to make a recording of that and mix it with other things. And so basically he called that process automatic writing. And this piece of sound, music, whatever you, I mean, there's a little bit of music and
yes, there's a
mix
little
of
bit,
sound. He added things
right,
to it,
right.
and that's what the sound score is.
Oh, that's fascinating. So you both collaborated with Kelley on this particular piece. So let's talk about this choreographic process. Okay, you've all had experience in that. First of all, where do you get your inspiration when you want to choreograph a piece? What do you use? I mean, some choreographers I know start with the music, and some have something within. Where do you start when you choreograph?
I think for me, they always tell writers to write what you know, and I feel it's the same with choreography. And I think just personal experiences that I have in my own life, I try to bring that out and find something in it that other people might also feel or experience, and then bring that, like this piece, for example, Fragile Connections, people connect, people move away, people go back and forth, and sort of everyone has some experience with that. So that's sort of those kind of broad ideas, and then we sort of get into rehearsal and I give them specific images to work with. And as far as a choreographic process, it's a very collaborative process. I give them imagery around a particular idea, and I just have them go off, and they come up with some movement, and then we shape it together, and then I kind of direct it. But I mean, it's very collaborative. We really work together on it.
Kelley's very good at drawing out people's individual strengths or interests and then bringing them together. So it's a really nice process because you can see other people grow within that in different ways.
So when she asks you to go off and do something, this is basically they will come back with what they themselves will dance, or do you sort of choreograph for other dancers as well? I mean, how?
It's a mix. I think they come back with a chunk of material, and they show it, and they teach it to each other, and they learn movement from each other, and then from there, I may say, take the Stacy phrase or the Anna phrase, and really, literally, we call them by their name, the name of who came up with it. And then from there, we'll create variations on the material, and we'll play with it, and maybe I'll say, Stacy and Anna, go and work with your material and create a duet lifting each other. Or I'll always give them some kind of structure, and then they'll come back with something that they've, come up with on their own. So it's pretty exciting to see.
I can imagine, yes, the whole process of development. So obviously you're trained dancers with a dance background, but you were talking about an audition with a lot of people showing up.
Yeah.
Are all your dancers trained, and do you really audition and screen them carefully, or?
Well, it's people that show up tend to come from all different backgrounds. I think the first audition we had people from a ballet background, we had people from contact improv, movement therapy, you know, modern, definitely, all kinds of different things.
So variety.
Yeah, and I think what I did initially was I sort of decided what the piece or the idea seemed. Some pieces lent them to ballet technique
Right.
more than others.
Right.
So I really worked with...
Chose your dancers.
Yeah, I really worked with what people had and kind of built on that.
Now, most of your performances are done in, I gather, relatively small spaces.
Yeah.
So you really have to bear that in mind when you choreograph, I would imagine.
Luckily, we had the luxury of being able to often rehearse in the actual space we're going to perform in, but without the lights. And usually it's a black box theater, and we bring the lights and we bring the chairs in. So we've been lucky to actually work in, most often, the studio that we're actually going to be performing in, which saves a lot of time resetting things
Sure,
later.
of course.
So I
Yes,
think
knowing
it helps,
exactly.
and helps me see, because I think dance looks different in every space.
Oh, yeah.
The way that whatever's framing it makes it look different. So it helps me also to see what is it that I'm actually seeing.
And who's your audience? Do you have a specific audience in mind when you're choreographing, or is it pretty general?
I think it tends to be people that we know, people in the dance community in Boston, a lot of people that I work with at MIT. I work in an academic environment. There are a lot of students, a lot of people interested in the arts there. So I've gotten a lot of support from people there. And just, the general Cambridge community, and, pretty much anyone that we find who seems to be interested in the arts or intrigued by it, I put them on the mailing list. So
Get them involved.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah,
Get them involved. The next piece that we're going to be showing is Strange Attractor, and I loved Thea Singer's comment in the Globe. She called it a snake charmer of a dance. I really, and we're not going to show plunge, but she called that a hoot too. But there's a quote here that I just wanted to read about what she wrote about Strange Attractor. Kelley Donovan's Strange Attractor was a lovely, sensuous piece generated by the flick of the wrist, more like a swirl, actually with fingers curling and uncurling, leading the arm, the head, the body about the space. This was the richest, most dynamic choreography of the evening, and Donovan's performance was expressive and polished to a fine sheen. And I read that, and I thought, wow, this is, this
that was
is
Karen
really...
Campbell, I think. Yeah.
Was that Karen's? Yes,
sounds
Thea
like
Singer's.
Karen.
Thea Singer's was the snake charmer of a dance.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
right, Karen Campbell's. This was in the Herald. That quote I read. So wonderful, wonderful praise for this piece. So tell us about what we're going to see in this next piece.
This piece also has it was probably my first attempt at collaboration. And what I did was I found a composer. He has a very Eastern style of music, and I think you can really hear that. And I worked with him, and I basically gave him some images and ideas, and said, well, the piece is kind of about this, although as I was working on it, I wasn't really sure what it was about. But and then I got together with a costume designer, and actually the composer and the costume designer met, and they just had a great chemistry together, and they just started talking and getting really excited, and so they collaborated together as well. So it was really a three-way collaboration, and it was a really fun process, and it got me really hooked on collaboration. So, and I think they basically worked with each other's ideas as well. So they brought it all together into one whole piece.
To one whole piece. Well, let's go to that video clip now. So we're actually going to be going right to our next video clip in a few minutes, but this one has quite a story behind it, so I want to leave time to really discuss this. Tell us about this.
Okay. I first got the idea to do this piece when I saw a film that was made about the book, A Midwife's Tale, which was written by Laurel Thatcher Ulrich. And then a filmmaker came along and made a film about the life of Martha Ballard, who was a midwife back in the late 1700s. And she kept a diary, actually, which was pretty unusual because most women couldn't even read or write in those days. But my grandmother has told me her family, they were Quakers, and so they believed in teaching women to read and write as well as men. So, it was pretty unusual in those days. And she was a pioneer up in northern Maine. And so she kept this diary, which was left behind after she died. And she was actually a member of my great-great-great-grandmother's family. So I grew up in Maine, and my mother grew up in that area. So the book that was written about it, and then I saw the film, and when I saw the film, I got a lot of ideas for movement and decided that I wanted to do a piece because it was connected to my family in some way, and I felt like I really wanted to do something with
going
that.
Back to your roots in a
Yeah,
sense.
kind of.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Now, were you aware of that connection before the book was written? I mean,
when the book came out in '91, I didn't even know about it. My mother actually sent me a newspaper clipping because there was a lot of news about it up in Maine, and I didn't think too much about it at the time. I didn't really take a look at it. I think when I saw the film and saw the visual images, because I'm a much more visual person, that's when it kind of hit me that that I could see kind of movement going
Coming
along
out
with
of
that. And so
Right.
that was when I got the idea and I had a dance group going at the time, so it seemed like a good opportunity to bring that into it.
Now, I understand that the author actually won a Pulitzer Prize for this.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
which is pretty exciting as well. And the film, now is this the film, the PBS that you're referring to?
Yeah, it was part of the American Experience series, I think.
Series,
Yeah.
right. And tell us about the music then, because there's a story behind this as well, too.
Yeah, actually, I was very lucky to find a composer who is from Maine, from that part of the state, and I had been speaking to him and had been acquainted with him for a little while, and he had mentioned that he'd sent me some music, and he writes classical music and knew a lot about early American music. And so when I got the idea to do the piece, I immediately thought of him and thought that he'd be a really great person, being from Maine, having a lot of knowledge of that music. He actually researched composers who lived in Maine at that time, so he really knew, he really did his homework, and he really knew about that music. So I asked him to work on the music, and it was really interesting because he notates the music, but he doesn't actually play piano. And also he lives in Maine, and he lives in Maine part of the time and in New Jersey part of the time. So he was commuting back and forth and notating the music without actually hearing it. So he would mail me stuff I would say about 6 weeks into creating the piece. I gave him a story and a structure, and he wrote music and sent it to us. I got an accompanist to play it, and we got to hear it for the first time. Luckily, it was really great. It was perfect, and he really managed to find the images and really managed to bring that out into the music just perfectly. So I think it really, really adds a lot to the piece.
I'm sure. It's just incredible to think of anybody writing music without being able to hear it.
Yeah, I
you know,
think he's
just
pretty
really
talented.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and you both performed in this?
Yes, we did.
And were involved in the choreography?
And Stacy was actually the
Yes.
Martha Ballard
Yes.
character.
Oh,
So
really,
she
Stacey?
played.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. I had seen the film as well, so
Uh-huh.
prior to that. So,
Uh-huh.
and we developed movement around phrases that she had given us,
Right.
verbal phrases that she had given us, and we developed movement around that.
Right.
And give me an example of a verbal phrase that you might be given to. Can you think of
I
something?
remember running around feeling hurried.
One was feeling hurried.
Liz had done the sense of, because one of the things we had talked about was oftentimes babies, are born in the middle of the night. There's not a sense of preparation, so it's usually women gathering in the middle of the night, gathering what they need and getting over to the house they needed to be at. So that sense of
Urgency.
urgency and also unpredictability. So sometimes you can feel like you're in the middle of something, but this woman is having a baby now,
Right,
so
yes,
you have
yes.
to go now.
And that also was representative of Martha Ballard's life in that she was always, she would come home, she'd have to take these very long journeys to get to these women who were having these births. And so she would come home and finish her long day of gardening or whatever,
Right.
and then have to turn right around and go out and do these births. So she was constantly, being required to go out and do these long trips and have these very long hours.
I'm just thinking of this whole process, even somebody coming to notify her that a baby was on the way. I
Right.
mean, it's
Yeah.
not like today you pick up the telephone and you say, okay,
Right.
hospital, I'm
Canoe.
coming, be ready for me. Yes,
Yeah.
quite a different, whole
She really
different
had an
experience.
incredible responsibility to the community
Indeed.
in that sense.
And if I'm remembering correctly, 27 years, 816 births that
Yeah.
she oversaw. That's pretty remarkable.
And that was during the time period where doctors didn't really practice
Midwifery or
yeah,
obstetrics?
they didn't really practice it yet. It was at that time period where the midwives really
Yes.
handled it. Things were just starting to change, and some of the things she wrote kind of about the doctors and different things reflected that. So she was really still right in there as the main
That was
person
her
to deal with the
career.
babies.
She really had a career of it,
Right,
which is interesting.
unusual for a woman at that time period as well, too, to have something like a career. And intriguing now to think that, of course, we've so much come full circle, because so many women today are opting to have a midwife
Yep.
birthing process rather than the clinical hospitalization kind of thing, too.
Right.
So they must know something good about this whole thing, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a community experience.
Yeah.
I think it's an event
Yes,
where many women
yes.
are at and many things are happening. The community is involved in each baby being born. It's not just a private thing.
much more of an interconnectedness.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Sort of
Welcoming
the
a new,
community.
a new little being into the community as well, too. It's lovely, lovely. Okay, tell us, I know we're only showing the last part of this video clip, so just give us an idea of what may have come prior to where we come into it.
Like Anna was saying, when they would hear that the baby was coming, all the women in the community would gather. At a certain point in the labor, they would know the baby was coming soon, and the women, the friends, and cousins and aunts and mothers, everybody would come together to that woman's house and help and assist in any way that they could. And at the very beginning, you see a lot of people kind of coming and gathering. At this point, when they're sitting in the circle, they've all come together, and now they're helping the woman and the midwife help the woman through the process, the birthing process.
So that's where we're coming in. Okay, let's watch now. Oh, that most babies came that quickly. Right. Oh, that was lovely. It was really lovely. That was the Green Street Studio where that was performed.
Yeah.
Yes, I've not been there, but I have been to the dance complex. And you have an upcoming show which will be performed there, as I understand. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that leads into Anna, your new role or your new position as director of the dance
Right,
complex.
right.
And actually, I'm saying new, but when did you take over that position?
Officially in September. Over this last summer, June of '98, the board of directors approached me about becoming director of the dance complex. And we took the summer to sort of transition and to also define that position, because there has never been a director before the founder. So we took some time to really define what those responsibilities were, what was the board of directors' responsibilities, what are my responsibilities, how to do this, and then the official press, the proclamation throughout the land that I was director was sent in September.
Ding, ding, dong.
Yep.
Right. Well, actually, we did a program. One of our first programs was on the dance complex, the
Yeah.
Boston Dance Alliance, actually, which is housed there.
Right.
So give us just a little bit of a brief background about the dance complex,
Right.
because it's intriguing, and
Yeah.
its history.
The dance complex is an organization, it's a community, and it's a building. What it started out as, and what it really is a bunch of dancers. In 1991, when a fitness chain called the Joy of Movement went bankrupt, the building went up for auction. A lot of companies had been using, and a lot of dancers had been using that space for rehearsals and classes and performances. And a bunch of dancers, one of whom is Roseanne Krause, got together and said, we are not going to let one more dance space leave. We're not going to let it go. So at first, while it was up for auction, while the IRS was trying to figure, the bankruptcy courts were figuring out, we went and said, well, can we just have the keys so we can keep dancing while you figure it out? Then once the bank took it back, they said, well, can we just have a lease until you figure everything out? So we were doing leases, I think, month by month and 3 months at a time. And what we had worked into the lease was something called the right to first refusal. If someone wanted to buy the building who did not want us to rent anymore, we could say, no, you can't. Meaning we would have to buy the building. And that's exactly what happened. We eventually bought the building in, I believe, '93. And so now we officially own the building. We have a 99-year lease, and we are the dance complex, the whole building in Cambridge. We house 6 studios, including a theater, which is where Kelley's performance will be at. And we rent the space at cost for classes, rehearsals, and performances. And
So what, has it been a challenge taking over as director?
It's been a lot of interesting, it's been wonderful. It's been absolutely wonderful because I really believe in the organization. It became my home when I moved to Massachusetts in '96. I became a work study there, which is the way we survived. There's only 5 paid staff people and about 100 volunteers who work in exchange for getting free classes and studio time, who run the studios, who clean the studios, who open the building and close the building. And that's what I was doing for a year. In '97, I began coordinating the work study program, and then in '98, I was asked to become director. So it's been my home for the 2 years that I've been here.
And you just offer such a wonderful, wide range of classes.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
just incredible.
It is. It is. I think one of the great things about the building is that you can come, like we were saying, everyone has their own story. Each person brings their own dance, and that's what the dance complex is. When I take my Bharatanatyam, my Indian dance class on Wednesday night, there's a flamenco class above me, and I can hear their feet and their castanets, and then the drums start coming up underneath me from the African class, and then next you hear this lovely salsa rhythm coming in, and down the hall there's a ballet class going on.
Right.
And then everything changes over. Later on in the evening there's a funk class, and then there's a hula class, and so everyone brings their dance.
Yes, their
and,
dance.
And that's what you come to do at the dance complex.
Yes.
You do your dance in a
Yes.
really nurturing environment.
Yes, and it is the energy you walk in the door, and it's just
It
swept
is.
up with it. It's
because we're a
marvelous,
bunch of
marvelous.
dancers.
Right.
Our bottom line is we're a bunch of dancers.
Yeah.
We're a bunch of dancers doing this, and I think that's the most impressive thing, and also the most beautiful thing about it. A bunch of dancers are running this
Just
building
coming
for
together.
dance.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's wonderful. And Stacy, you've actually have some interesting things going on in your life as well as Kelley, Donovan, and dancers. So share that with us.
Right now, I'm a graduate student at Tufts University in the occupational therapy department. And my primary interest right now is about how body image and body awareness and movement play a role in your concept of self and in in that research, I'm interested in how using movement, you can use movement and activity with people to increase their self-esteem and to really help people either who have a dysfunction or people who don't, for wellness reasons. People who just want to work towards more positive self-esteem or issues about body image. Yeah.
That's great. So you're both contributing over and above your performing, and I'm working with Kelley in very, very vivid ways. Yes. Okay, let's talk about the dance scene in Cambridge now, and what have you seen, for better or for worse, has happened over the past few years in Cambridge?
Well, I've been in Cambridge for about 10 years, so I've seen a range of different things happen. And I was just out of school when the studio started to close down, actually, and saw the process of dancers getting together, and was involved in early work study and different things. And I think oftentimes there's this attitude that dance in Cambridge and in Boston, modern dance, is not really in existence, and I think right now, from what I've seen, it's really thriving. I think around 94, 95, a lot of people, students just out of school, came to the city, have stayed, have started choreographing, and I think the directors of Green Street Studios have been really good at facilitating and supporting young choreographers and giving us a chance, myself included, to try out pieces, and to then eventually we started to produce our concerts there. So I think it's really grown, and I think between the Dance Complex and Green Street Studios, that's where the contemporary dance is really focused. And I think it's going really well, and I think more and more people are coming and more people are staying, and I think things are definitely on the upswing. And there was a period of about maybe 6 months where all the studios had closed and nobody could rehearse or teach, and it was sort of people, some people did leave, but I think 10 times as many companies have come in since then, and it's amazing. I think it's incredible. I think people aren't really quite aware of how much is going on. I think it's just amazing. And
how long ago was this that the studios were closing? Was it quite a while ago?
It was around 91, and then they started to reopen in late 91 and 92, and then around 94, 95, just lots of choreographers came, and 95, 96, 97, a lot of companies have sprung up over just the last few years. There's a lot of people.
Now, I think of Cambridge as just being the center for modern dance. Of course, I obviously have worked with several groups from that area in conjunction with this show. So I think of that. Now, do you think that that's true because there's so many college students and modern really appeals to the young dancer? I don't know. I'm throwing that out as a theoretical question. Why modern is so strong in the Cambridge area?
Well, I mean, I'll field that.
Yeah.
I think that it's a very intellectual community, and I think they really.
Yes, maybe that's what I'm meaning.
There may be styles that are beautiful, but within modern, I think there's this ability to express thoughts and feelings and emotions in a way that might be a little more involved, a little more complex, and I think that appeals to people who are really thinking about things.
Yes, and of course
on
in that
deeper
area,
levels, more layered levels, and that area is an area where there's a lot of academia.
Sure.
So people are going to be interested in that. They're going to want to know what you have to say and why.
Right. So what would you like to see happening in the Cambridge area? What in the next few years?
I love that whole idea when we were talking about the dance and reading program in the libraries, which has been around for a little while, but doing more of the teaching, bringing teaching into different areas, bring modern, or modern or creative movement into areas where it's not, to see more performance being done, in a grassroots way, in places that it's not being accessed by people who aren't being able to access it.
And how would you see that accomplished, do you think?
Well, that was in the dance and reading program, was within the library system.
Right.
But I would say those programs could go into, it could also, there are programs that go into school systems.
Right. The dance complex has 2 programs. During the month of May, we bring dance teachers into the classrooms to work with school teachers to create curriculum-based dance classes. I think, and what we do with the summer program, which is extended throughout the year, is dancers collaborate with the children's librarians to increase literacy and also excitement about reading. I think using dance as a learning tool is something that is really, it's not a new thing, but I think it's also important because what you're building is an audience.
Right.
If you're building interest in dance, and by programs like this, Chrissy Taylor's doing a wonderful job with the tab.
Yeah.
Just I think the exposure and showing that this is a valid thing, that there are people who do this for a living, and that it is a valid thing, and that it is something that everyone can share in. And starting them when they're young with an interest and awareness of dance is something that I can do.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Or even,
You know?
even like more, more multi-generational. Bring it into, senior centers.
Right, like
or
Back
have
Porch.
it like Back Porch
Back
Dance
Porch
Company
Jones,
does.
right.
Bring it more places where maybe it's not accessible, and maybe sometimes like we've had to do things that are free performances or whatever, so that people are accessing it. But hopefully then that will turn around into
Right.
an audience that will be actually paying to
Right.
come
And
see.
supporting.
Once they know what's there and that it's there for them.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
We have about a minute left, so let's briefly talk then about what's coming up for Kelley, Donovan, and dancers.
We're going to do, at the Dance Complex, we're going to do a show in May 21st and 22nd. And it's going to be all live music. It's going to be a collaboration with different composers. We'll do a little bit of The Midwife's Tale as well. We'll show that piece again.
Wonderful.
And then we're also collaborating with a composer who wrote some music, some guitar music in Ireland. So we're sort of doing the English and the Irish together. So, and we're going to do, he's going to come and perform the music live. We're also going to have a little bit of improvisational dance with improvisational music. And then we're also going to do another trio, actually, that Anna's dancing in all of them. And so we're going to be showing that May 21st and 22nd at the Dance Complex, which is right on Mass Ave in Central
Great.
Square in Cambridge.
Follow the
Sounds
sound of the
exciting.
drums.
Follow the sound of the drums. I love it. We'll do. We'll do. Thank you, ladies, very much for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thank
It's been
you.
a great show. I really enjoyed it. And best of luck with all your endeavors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care and goodbye.